This question is an adaptation from something which came up on an AQA GCSE paper a couple of years ago. So the table tells us that there's a girl called Sabah who normally uses Dragon taxis or United cars. We're given for each company the fixed charge and the rate per mile. The fixed charge is what you pay even if you don't go anywhere with a taxi, when you've actually just called it and it's arrived, whereas the rate per mile is how much you pay from every mile that you travel. We're then given a bit of information about another taxi firm, Uber, which I'm sure some of you will have heard of. They don't have a fixed charge, but they do charge £1.10 per kilometre. So immediately I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, they haven't got a fixed charge and they seem to charge less as the rate, so surely I would go with Uber. But the problem that you might see is that this is per kilometre and this is per mile. So we're going to have to do a little bit of translation between the two units. Okay, we don't know, as it's asking us to work out the cost, whether it's cheaper for her to hire a taxi from Uber. It doesn't actually say how far she's going. So what we need to look at is the fact that it does tell us that the journey is the same using Dragon or United. As soon as you know that that's going to be the same for both, you know that you can set up an equation, because same means that you can use equals. So if I look at Dragon taxis, I'm going to have to pay £2.30 plus £1.20 times the distance that we're going. So I'm going to call that distance x, and that must equal £1.75 plus £1.25x. So when I'm solving this equation, I can see that I've got an x on this side and one on that side, so I've got to get them all together. So I'm going to remove from the side where there's less of them. So here I've got 1.2, but here I've got 1.25, so I'm going to remove them from this side. So I'm going to minus 1.2x, and obviously I'll do that to both sides. So all I'm left with here is 2.3, and on the other side, now I've only got 0.05x. Right, now I've got my x by itself, I'm going to get my number to the other side, so I'm going to subtract it. So 2.3 minus 1.75, and that gives me 0.55, and obviously if I minus 1.75 from here, it ends up as 0, so I'm just left with my 0.05x. Okay, I want 1x, so I've got to get rid of my 0.05, and they're written next to each other, which means at the moment they're timesing. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide. So I've got to do 0.55 divided by 0.05, and that must equal x. Now, perhaps I'm not so good at dividing with decimals, so what I'm going to do is keep timesing top and bottom by 10 until they're whole numbers. So I'm just going to make an equivalent fraction. So if I times the top by 100, move the decimal point, now I've got 55. And if I times the bottom by 100, move the decimal point, now I've got 5. Okay, so that equals x. And I know that 55 divided by 5 is 11, so then I can say that x equals 11. So now I know that she's travelling 11 miles. To work out how much it's going to cost with Uber, I need to think about the fact that this is now in kilometres. So I'm going to have to work out what 11 miles is in kilometres. So 11 miles is what I'm looking at. And I know that to get from miles to kilometres, I can times by 1.6. And that's something I should know for my exam. So I'm going to do that calculation. And then 11 times 1.6. All of this could come up on non-calculator, so make sure you're happy with your decimal multiplication. And that's going to give me 17.6 kilometres. So now with Uber, I've got no fixed charge, but it is going to cost me £1.10 times 17.6. So that's going to equal £19.36, and I'll compare that to what it would have cost with Dragon. So if you remember, Dragon was in miles. And the reason I'm not going to bother doing United is because I know it's the same between Dragon and United, so I'm just going to work out one of them. So Dragon is 2.3 plus 1.2 times by 11. 2.3 plus 1.2 times 11. It's going to give me £15.50. So I can see here that Dragon is actually going to be a lot cheaper for my journey than Uber was. So I am going to select Dragon. So the answer to the question, decide whether it's cheaper for her to hire a taxi from Uber for her journey, is going to be no, it is not cheaper.